Hello, this is the Roundtable. When we understand key global issues, we can see how the world works. Now, get ready for our easy-to-comprehend analysis of top news from around the world. We are joined by Professor Kim Hana. Welcome back to the Roundtable.
Thanks for having me again.
We are also joined by Professor Lee Kyung-seok. Welcome.
It's my pleasure to be here.
With the presidential election some 4 months away in the United States, President Joe Biden and his Republican opponent, Mr. Donald Trump, held the first debate on TV. They are running neck and neck, so the TV debate could change the course of the presidential campaign. Trump lost to Biden 4 years ago in the election, and the two arch rivals faced off again. Professor Kim, would you like to share your first impression of the first debate with our viewers?
Well, the debate was around 90 minutes long.
90 minutes,
and
right.
To be honest, it was quite difficult to watch at times. Former President Barack Obama recently stated that bad debate nights happen, and I think that this first debate was one of those cases.
You're talking about the poor performance of the current president.
He did not live up to expectations, yes.
In what way?
Going in, there were a lot of concerns related to his health and his age. And one of the main motives for him in this debate was to show that he was capable, he was energetic, and he would be able to perform well. And
so that he can be trusted to be in the White House for another 4 years.
Right, to serve another term. But I think that he did not live up to those expectations, and his poor performance was alarming to a lot of supporters right now.
It was the earliest first presidential debate since 1960 because usually the first presidential candidate debate would be held in the month of September. But now we have the first debate in the month of June.
Right.
So do you think it was a strategic mistake for the Team Biden to have the debate in such early time?
So I think there's two fundamental reasons to think about why this presidential debate was held in June. The first reason is both candidates ran away with the party's nominations. They won the Republican and Democratic primary really early, so they was only set up as a presidential debates. And they wanted to actually show off and prove their competency as early as possible, and think the two camps agreed upon about all the presidential elections. And there's a second reason is usually the Commission on the Presidential Debate sponsored this presidential debate, but both camps criticized about the role of the CPD early.
Right.
So they have a direct negotiation about the early presidential debates, and I think they have a really strategic calculations because there's a really a close public poll among both sides, and they wanted to actually prove a candidate's capability to the domestic audience as early as possible. And so based on the strategic calculations, they set up this presidential debate, but I think there was a miscalculation from the Democratic side.
I think part of the frustration is that in terms of responses, President Biden's responses had substance. They were logical, but people were so focused on his performance. And as Professor Lee mentioned, Donald Trump seemed a lot more energetic, and people are going to remember Trump's energy more so than Biden's actual responses that focused on substance.
Both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. That I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way, and I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards.
Well, Professor Kim, I guess the main question is the voters deciding that which candidate is more presidential, right? What do American voters appear to say?
So, the debate had a lot of discussions related to golf, about morals, so in that sense, there was a lot of things that American voters were focused on. And the problem is that people will take clips of this and put it online, and so this will lead to skewed perceptions. But as of now, a recent poll that was taken right after the debate by CNN showed that 67% believe that Trump did a better job, while 33% that Biden did a better job. So we can definitely see that there are some political divisions here, and that in general, Trump's energy seemed to be more emphasized than Biden's responses.
There is a rising voice inside the Democrat Party that because of this disastrous performance by Joe Biden as a presidential candidate, he has to be replaced by a new candidate. One, is it possible? The second, do you agree that that's the only option available to Democratic Party?
So after the first presidential debate, as you mentioned, there has been a lot of discussion among political elites within the Democratic Party that are concerned about whether or not President Biden will be able to serve another term. And so right now, there are discussions as to who could potentially be a replacement, if at all. But at the same time, a lot of studies actually show that the presidential debates are not that influential in terms of the voters' decision making. Some studies have shown that over 80% of voters do not really take the debates into consideration because it doesn't happen in a vacuum. There are so many other things that happen. Plus, this first presidential debate happened so early. So in that sense, I don't know if making these decisions immediately is going to be effective. Also, we have to also watch President Biden's approval ratings right now, because depending on his approval ratings, the political elites are going to be making these decisions. So a lot's going to determine how President Biden acts within these next few months. And even in the case of Trump, he did not perform well. It's just that he had more energy. When it came to the statements he was making, a lot of them were not true. He also evaded a lot of questions. When they asked him whether or not he'd be willing to accept the election results or how he feels about the January 6th riots, he didn't respond to that. He just avoided it and said other things. So Trump didn't perform well. It's just that everyone is so focused on Biden's energy. And studies have shown, actually, recent statistics showed that people care more about Biden's age than Trump's charges, criminal charges. And so that's where I see things going right now.
So think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Well, firstly, as we heard, that Trump is loaded with legal charges. How would these cases affect his candidacy in presidential election?
I think the impact of the guilty verdicts of Donald Trump has a minimal impact. There's a recent survey released by the ABC News and Ipsos in early June. It shows that nearly half of the Americans believe Trump should suspend the presidential campaign. But when we disaggregate the public poll and really think about based on the partisanship, there's a really interesting result. So for example, the 79 of the Democrat supporters, they think that Donald Trump should suspend the presidential campaign, but only 60% of the Republican supporters think Donald Trump should suspend the presidential elections. And also there's another public poll released by the New York Times recently. So this result shows that the verdict actually mobilized the Republican supporters, and they are more likely to vote Trump. So the statistics shows that actually the New York Times asked the respondents, did Donald Trump's convictions make you more likely or less likely to support him? That was the questions. And the interesting result came out that the Republicans answered, I will, there's a 20% more likely to support him.
More likely?
Yeah, more likely. And only 5% of the Republican supporters were less likely to support him. But the Democratic sides, actually, they answered 33% of the Democrats were less likely to support him, but only 1% of the Democratic people will more likely support him. So this is a really interesting result, and we have to think about what's the political implication about the divided political landscape in the United States means. So it is really bipolarized, and the Donald Trump, the Republican supporters, they are thinking about, there's a last chance to vote for Joe Biden. And also the Democratic side, the supporters, they're less likely to vote Republicans. It's only about the Republicans, the impact within the Republican supporters. But the statistic shows that no, the verdicts will not really change the Republican supporters' voting behaviors. So based on these kind of results, I don't think the impact of the guilty verdicts have a significant impact on Donald Trump's presidential outcome in the November elections.
Professor Kim, was South Korea or South Korea-U.S. relations or the security conditions on the Korean Peninsula actually mentioned by any of the candidates in the debate?
So inter-Korean relations specifically was not mentioned. President Biden mentioned South Korea as a democratic ally that's supporting U.S. foreign policy to Ukraine in terms of providing military and financial support to Ukraine. I think Trump also mentioned Kim Jong-un as one of the political leaders that does not respect Biden, and he stated that this could lead to World War III. So elite rhetoric is really influential, and so that could also be a little concerning. But in general, inter-Korean relations were not mentioned. We do know that if Trump is reelected, he is going to focus on withdrawing the U.S. troops from South Korea. And he has said that he's going to do this many times if South Korea does not provide financial compensation. He has stated that South Korea is a wealthy country, and he has called South Korea a freeloader, right? So we can imagine that the ROK-U.S. alliance is going to shift heavily if Trump is reelected.
Professor Lee, as a security expert, what do you think?
So I have the same opinion as Professor Kim mentioned. When you really look at it, he always mentioned about the money, cost. It's really worrisome from my perspective that he thinks the alliance heavily from the financial and economic perspective, and he do not really knows about the value of alliance and the huge implication about the United States alliance system, and it is really, really concerning right now.
So Kim, there will be the second debate on September 10th, and the election is November the 5th. What can we expect from these candidates for the remaining days of the election?
So I think up until the second debate, there's going to be a lot of eyes watching Biden's every move. People are going to be watching how Biden acts, the decisions he makes, the things he says, every little action, because they're going to either want to criticize him or find a reason to show that he is going to be a good leader. And so in many ways, there's going to be a lot of eyes on Biden. There's also going to, by default, also going to be a lot of attention on Kamala Harris right now, because as the vice president, she has remained relatively low key, but I think this is a good moment for her to really step up and show that the Democratic Party can do a lot. And also we have to watch what the things that Trump says. Elite rhetoric is really important, and regardless of whether or not what Trump says is accurate, it is very influential. So I think all of these things will kind of all together play a really critical role, especially for the swing voters.
President Biden's performance in the first debate was so disastrous that his party now talks about his withdrawal from the race and finding a new candidate. We'll give you a continuous discussion on the U.S. presidential election. Let's move on to the next topic. With the vacation season rolling in, this is one of the busiest places. It's an airport. Incheon International Airport is now transforming itself into a mega hub airport. Let's watch the video clip first.
Incheon International Airport is an air hub in Northeast Asia and the world's first airport accommodating 50 million people annually. More surprisingly, Incheon Airport is poised to grow bigger and make a fresh start. It will mark a second grand opening later this year. Incheon Airport has been carrying out a four-phase expansion project over the past 3 decades. It is a giant project requiring an enormous amount of budget and a massive number of manpower. Ground was broken in 1992, and the first passenger terminal opened in 2001. The second stage of development began in 2002 to build a passenger building and a third runway, as well as a cargo terminal and other facilities. The second passenger terminal opened in 2018 as part of the third phase development. The fourth stage of expansion will be completed in October, and new facilities will go into service in the second half of this year. The expansion is to ensure that Incheon Airport will competently respond to a surging demand for air travel in the Asia-Pacific region and sharpen its global competitiveness.
첫 번째로는 똑똑한 공항을 만들 겁니다. 두 번째로는 한국의 전통미라든지 디지털 아트를 통한 설레이는 공항을 만들 겁니다.
Biometric-based smart check-in and security services will shorten wait times. While with the help of the augmented reality technology, the aviation monitoring control system is expected to reduce aircraft operation delays. Autonomous vehicles will be introduced to boost accessibility for those with limited mobility and increase the use of renewable energy resources. The airport will feature enormous kinetic structures and the world's largest displays showing flight schedules and other information. It is also expected to generate economic effects worth $9.37 billion and create roughly 60,000 jobs.
현재 전 세계에서 1억 명 이상의 항공 여객을 처리하는 국제공항은 미국 조지아주 아틀란타 공항입니다. 인천국제공항이 올해 10월에 4단계 개장을 함으로써 항공 여객 1억 600만 명 처리 능력을 갖게 됩니다. 이렇게 되면 동북아의 허브로서 자리매김할 수 있을 것 같습니다.
Expectations are running high for Incheon International Airport's fresh takeoff to become a world-class air hub and a base for Korea's new growth.
The transformation is indeed very impressive, and I'm looking forward to the new Incheon International Airport in near future. But the airport size, the number of runways, and the accommodation capacity are not the only criteria for selecting the world's best airport. There is much more than that. In 2024, Doha Hamad International Airport in Qatar ranked top, followed by Singapore's Changi Airport and Incheon International Airport coming the third. Professor Kim, what defines the world's best international airport?
So I think it's usually based on public opinion and surveys of passengers who fly quite frequently. So there's a company called Skytrax, which is an UK-based international air transport and consultancy organization, and they spread surveys to passengers and ask them about their experiences with around 550 airports worldwide. So it's a lot of airports that these survey respondents are evaluating. And this survey evaluates airports by 40 different categories, and the quality of service is the most decisive factor in terms of ranking the best airport.
The categories are mainly about customer service. It's definitely great for customers. Airports must be competing fiercely to gain a good reputation. So, Professor Lee, does this show that the airports are great economic values? Right?
So absolutely. So there's actually a academic field called airport economics.
Airport economics.
So this kind of academic field is actually analyzing the economic impact of airports on the regional or national economy. So the airports are usually a catalyst for economic growth, and this is not just an airport. It's not just a public transportation hub. So this is the researchers and experts actually describe having a good airports. It's similar to having a great city. And the economic impact, it's quite similar. And there's a couple of revenue resources that a nation or a city can gain. So there's an aeronautical revenue. This is a charge related to the use of airport facility by airlines, such as landing fees, parking fees, and passenger service charges. And there's another sources is a non-aeronautical revenue. It's the income from commercial activities within the airport, such as the car parking, rental income for properties and advertising and service. And according to the Airport Economics in 2023 report, this report actually gathered the data from 1,000 airports across the world and all of the sizes and the business models. And the distribution of airport revenues in 2021. So the aeronautical revenue accounts of 50% of the whole revenue, and the non-aeronautical revenue accounts for 34%. And also there's a side effects. If you have a really good airports, it actually connect with regional cities, different industries, and this is actually another factors that boost up the regional and the national economy.
Yes. Doha Hamad International Airport is this year's champion, and Singapore's Changi Airport is the winner of last year, 2023, and took the top spot 12 times. So, Professor Kim, how could they do that to keep their airports on the top list of the world international airports?
I think in part what Professor Lee said, there have been a lot of investments that are being made in these airports. And so in these specific airports, there have been proactive investments in both the aviation and non-aviation sectors. And this seems to have increased more after the pandemic because they're focused on diversifying their profits. So one of the things that you mentioned was efficiency and time, right? And so in the case of Singapore, in the aviation sector, Changi Airport operates over 6,000 flights weekly to 145 cities worldwide, and it also operates successfully as a 24-hour logistics hub. So continuous operation without curfew, as well as efficient cargo transfers and extensive flight connectivity have all really contributed to this. But it's not just that, it's also we end up spending a lot of time in airports because we have, we're flying to other places. And so in the non-aviation sector, there have been proactive investments in making the airport into a destination in and of itself. So since we're waiting for other flights, they have made airports into a cultural space and a cultural environment. And it's become an entertainment hub, right? There are a lot of restaurants, places to shop. And so in the case of Singapore again, there's the Changi's Jewel, which is a massive glass dome, and it has the world's largest indoor waterfall. And it also has lush greenery. So in many ways, it's become almost a tourist site in itself.
I see. So layover is no longer just a boring and wasteful time, right? Surely there are reasons for them to stay atop the list and win such a great reputation. But Incheon Airport is already recognized as the world's third best airport, so it also has enough potentials to reach the top spot. So Lee, any words of wisdom for Incheon International Airport to be even more competitive?
The Incheon airports need to increase the competitiveness, especially in the leisure and shopping sectors. So the Incheon International Airport was ranked in leisures in the 5th. It's behind the Changi and the Hamad International Airport. And also in terms of the shopping sectors, Incheon Airport was ranked in 8th. But especially about the leisure and shopping, the government have to think about how to improve the competitiveness to other airports, especially the Changi airports. For example, I would introduce how the Singaporean government actually made the airport as an entertainment hub. So not only waterfall, there's a rooftop, there's a movie theater, there's a spa section, there's even a golf range. And so all the tourists do not just wait for the airport, they actually entertain and spend time in their airport. And also in terms of the Qatar Hamad International Airport, this is the place for best shopping ever in the world. There's endless shoppings, dining and relations, and really it's really easily to accessible all the luxury brands and the boutiques. So in that sense, I think the Incheon International Airport can focus more, invest more energy and resources to improve the leisure section and the shopping sections to become a world top.
I really look forward to that future. The Yoon Suk-yeol government of South Korea has launched a foreign policy initiative that would make South Korea a global pivotal state. The Incheon International Airport is the first opportunity for foreigners to have a taste of South Korea as the global hub. This is all for today. We'll return next week with more trending issues. Professors, thank you so much for sharing your analysis of the election in the United States and the international airports with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for watching and goodbye.